Hi everyone, welcome back to another video of Mike's Geek Corner with your host, Mike Quevedo. And for this review, we're going way back to the early 1940s to cover not only what is the first film adaptation of Shazam, but what could also be called the first comic book superhero blockbuster. And I speak of none other than the black and white 12-chapter movie serial, The Adventures of Captain Marvel, based on the comic book published by Fawcett Comics from 1940 to 1953. Released by Republic Pictures in 1941 and starring champion weightlifter turned actor Tom Tyler in the title role, and former child actor Frank Coghlan Jr. as his teenage radio operator alter ego Billy Batson, Adventures of Captain Marvel is considered by most to be one of the best, if not the best, movie serial ever made. It is certainly up there with the Flash Gordon serial trilogy as a milestone in the annals of vintage movie serials. At a time when comic book superheroes were very new and fresh to the public, and not taken very seriously by major film studios, Republic Pictures and directors John English and William Witney delivered with The Adventures of Captain Marvel an impressively produced and directed serial for a very modest budget, worthy of being mentioned alongside other revered subgenre films like The Mask of Fu Manchu and Tarzan's New York Adventure. Although the serial took certain liberties with the source material, it benefited the picture in the long run, as it turned what was in great part a simplistic satirical superhero comic book into a serious pulp saga with a gripping story that displayed state-of-the-art practical effects for its time as well as top-notch stunt work. Movie serials, also known as chapter plays, were a popular cinematic form of episodic storytelling that began in the early 1910s and lasted until the 1950s. The form consisted of a series of short films shown weekly in theaters and in consecutive order, with the intention of keeping the audience's interest vivid by ending each episode on a cliffhanger, often one dealing with either the main protagonist or someone close to him or her finding themselves in a perilous situation whose resolve would be showcased in the following chapter the following week. The genres the serials covered ranged from westerns, adventure, science fiction, mysteries, and superheroes. They were basically the forerunners of television shows, and probably even more so of streaming shows. They could also be seen as film versions of pulp magazines. Filmmakers such as George Lucas, Steven Spielberg, Quentin Tarantino, and Joe Johnston have all been influenced to some degree by movie serials. During the late 1920s, with the arrival of sound technology, movie serials became costlier to produce, and as a result, many film companies stopped producing them. Outlets like Universal and Mascot Pictures, which was ultimately absorbed by Republic Pictures, remained in the business of serials, with Columbia Pictures entering the field as well, after being influenced by Universal's immense success with Flash Gordon in 1936. And so, it was Universal Pictures, Republic Pictures, and Columbia Pictures, the three main houses for movie serials, now handling the pictures with considerably trimmed budgets. Of the three studios, Republic Pictures, albeit being one of Hollywood's smaller studios, was the one that had the better footing on what made movie serials exciting, with the use of competent writing, elaborate stunts, large-scale explosions, and creative visuals. After a string of successful chapter plays like the comic strip-based Dick Tracy in 1937, The Lone Ranger in 1938, and the continuing Zorro adventure, Zorro's Fighting Legion, Republic now had its eyes on the newest sensational character of the fresh medium called comic books, Superman. As it turned out, however, negotiations between Republic and Superman's publisher National Periodical, later called DC, fell through after the film studio wouldn't cede the comic book publisher with the amount of creative control they were demanding for the proposed serial. And so Republic turned the concept that would have been for Superman into another solid achievement as a serial called The Mysterious Dr. Satan, which was released in 1940, featuring a masked crime fighter named Copperhead going on a vengeful crusade against a titular evil mad scientist who aims to build an army of robots for the purpose of world domination. National Periodical would instead find Superman a more accommodating studio with Paramount and Mac Fleischer Studios, and then Famous Studios, as a string of renowned animated shorts going from 1941 to 1943, and the character would not get his movie serial until 1948 from Columbia Pictures. Still, while the Man of Steel may have flown away from Republic's cinematic vision, there was another powerful flying crime fighter who was making quite the impression with comic book readers, and was actually for a time outselling Superman's comics. The superhero spoken of is of course none other than Fawcett Comics' own answer to Superman, the world's mightiest mortal, Captain Marvel. Created by writer Bill Parker and artist C.C. Beck, Captain Marvel made his debut in Whiz Comics #2 in 1940, depicting 12-year-old disinherited orphan Billy Batson as he is selling newspapers on a street corner, being lured by a strange shadowy figure below to the subway station where a peculiar subway car transports both the boy and a stranger to a subterranean cavern where Billy meets an old wizard named Shazam, who, being weary after fighting the forces of evil for 3,000 years, chooses Billy as his successor and bestows upon him the wisdom of Solomon, the strength of Hercules, the stamina of Atlas, the power of Zeus, the courage of Achilles, and the speed of Mercury after saying the wizard's name, Shazam, turning him into a majestically garbed Herculean-looking adult called Captain Marvel, with the ability to turn back into Billy Batson also by saying Shazam. Captain Marvel battled such menaces like the recurring twisted ploys of the brilliant criminal mad scientist Dr. Savannah, as well as the racketeering spiritualist Professor Skull, and the viciously driven wealthy young sportsman Rodney Stark, with his army of the frozen primitive men, while as Billy Batson covered events as a radio reporter. Captain Marvel seemed more than the logical property for Republic Pictures to pursue the rights for a picture after losing their opportunity with Superman. And once Fawcett and Republic reached an agreement, production for the serial went underway. The director duo of Will and Witney and John English, having already directed a great number of Republic's finest serials, including The Lone Ranger, The Fighting Devil Dogs, Zorro's Fighting Legion, Daredevils of the Red Circle, and The Mysterious Dr. Satan, were given the directorial reins to the adventures of Captain Marvel. Shot primarily at the Bronson Capes, Los Angeles, and Lone Pine, and budgeted at $135,553, Witney and English brought with them an experience that made them pioneers in putting together dynamic fight scenes and innovative chase action pieces. Witney would direct one day, and English would direct the next day, working from a script by a group of writers whose resume included some of the aforementioned serials done by Witney and English. While staying visually true to the character of Captain Marvel, as well as his powers, in order to adjust the concept of the world's mightiest mortal to the method of chapter play storytelling and appeal to more mainstream moviegoers, Republic Pictures decided to make some changes from the comic, such as doing away with the more cartoonish and satirical tone of the four-colored page, and instead going for a more straight and more serious approach, and made the hero's origin much more organic to the plot of the serial. Billy Batson was changed from an on-air radio reporter with WHIC station to an assistant radio operator for the Malcolm Archaeological Expedition in the Siam region called the Valley of the Tombs. Dr. Sivana does not appear in the serial, and instead Captain Marvel's main antagonist is a villain created by Republic called the Scorpion, who is very much in the mold of other mysterious serial villains such as the Octopus from Columbia's The Spider's Web from 1938, or Don Deloro from Zorro's Fighting Legion, who hides behind a mask as he commands a large criminal campaign. Also, just as Don Deloro possesses a deity whom the Jutsi tribe worship in order for him to use their loyalty to carry out attacks that will benefit his treacherous goal, so does the Scorpion poses as a scorpion god of the native population of the Valley of the Tombs, so to have them do his bidding, which includes attacking the Malcolm expedition, and have control over the powerful device that is the Golden Scorpion. The Scorpion also bears a very similar look to Batman foe, the Monk. Tom Tyler, an amateur heavyweight weightlifting champion who made his way to starring in low-budget Western movies and serials in the 30s, and playing the Mummy in 1940's The Mummy's Hand, was cast as Captain Marvel. Standing at 6'2" and possessing an angular face with a lithe athletic frame, Tyler just about perfectly resembles Captain Marvel from the very early issues, including his suit with the military triangular flap that held the button on the right shoulder. He may not have displayed the good-humored hero of the comics, but his interpretation of a more stern and at times lethal crime fighter seems more fitting for a silver screen treatment of the 1940s. Bringing with him a trajectory as both a child and teen actor during 1920s silent films to 30s films like Public Enemy and Gone with the Wind, Frank Coghlan Jr., though already in his mid-20s at this time, still sharply resembled the teen Billy Batson from the printed page, and captured the character's naive, youthful demeanor. In supporting roles we have the very stunning Louise Currie, coming off the B-Western films Billy the Kid Outlawed and The Pinto Kid. Currie plays Betty Wallace, secretary of the Malcolm expedition, as she displays a believable sense of warmth and friendliness. Bringing some comic relief is William Benedict as Billy Batson's goofy but handy friend, Whitey Murphy, after having appeared in Republic's Adventures of Red Ryder serial the previous year. For the other members of the Malcolm expedition, we have Broadway veteran Robert Strange as the firm leader of the expedition, Professor John Malcolm. Accomplished character actor John Davidson, again in an Asian role after playing the villainous part of Dr. Bashan in Universal's 1933 serial The Perils of Pauline, showcases a fascinating sense of intrigue as the enigmatic Siamese archaeologist Tal Kotali, as he prophesies gloom and doom with a compelling baritone voice. Another name coming out of Red Ryder is British actor Harry Worth as the self-approving Professor Luther Bentley. Then there's George Pembroke as the impersonal Dr. Stephen Lang, George Lynn as the moody Professor Dwight Fisher, and for the timid Professor Harry Carlyle, we have silent film veteran Brian Washburn. The malignant Scorpion, who is billed amongst the rest of the cast as a Scorpion, and is suspected to be one of the scholars of the Malcolm expedition, speaks with a distinct, eerie, deep, calm voice, giving the unsettling impression of self-assuredness, and also has an intense stare making its presence through his mask. After portraying the noble assistant of the masked pulp vigilante the Spider, Ram Singh, in Columbia's The Spider's Web, character actor Kenneth Duncan now becomes the vicious right-hand man of the Scorpion, Barnett. Reed Hadley changes his mask and hat from Zorro's Fighting Legion to a turban and ancient garments for the scene-stealing role of the Scorpion's fanatically loyal follower and local Siamese resident leader, Rahman Bar. And for the brief but memorable part of the Wizard Shazam, English film and stage actor Nigel de Bruyere, after playing Cardinal Richelieu in 4 adaptations of Alexander Dumas's literary work, brings a solid presence that foreshadows the adventure of mythic proportions that will follow in each chapter. Before Richard Donner would make audiences believe a man could fly nearly 4 decades later in Superman the movie through the use of blue screens and rotoscope techniques, William Witney and John English first accomplished this concept in Adventures of Captain Marvel with the use of a 7-feet papier-mâché dummy created by special effects man Howard Lydecker that was made in the form of our hero flying with outstretched arms and arched back. Weighing only 15 pounds, the dummy would move on 2 wires with no need of propulsion besides its own light weight. To fly upwards, the cape was weighted down, the dummy slid backward with its feet first, and then the film was reversed. For other flying sequences, Tom Tyler was placed in front of a process screen. Tyler's stuntman, Dave Sharp, performed outstanding feats of acrobatics by leaping from high points and posturing his body as if he could fly. When landing, Sharp would jump from a certain height done in slow motion before a quick cut would have Tom Tyler finishing the turn. Returning from previous serials directed by William Witney and John English, such as Daredevils of the Red Circle, Zorro's Fighting Legion, and The Mysterious Dr. Satan, is music composer Cy Feuer, who delivers a harp and violin-based sweeping opening theme that encompasses a sense of high heroic adventure and perilous mystery. He also serves a mysterious Middle Eastern-sounding theme for the Golden Scorpion. His action music for the fight and chase scenes is also energetic and filled with a sense of wonder. The serial's first chapter, The Curse of the Scorpion, deals with Billy Batson, a young radio broadcaster who, during an expedition with a group of prestigious scholars called the Malcolm Archaeological Expedition in Siam's volcanic Valley of the Tombs, encounters an ancient wizard named Shazam inside the main tomb. And, after seeing how Billy refused to go with the expeditioners into the sealed crypt containing the immensely powerful idol the Golden Scorpion, out of respect of the warning on the crypt's seal not to enter, endows Billy, by saying the wizard's name, with the ability to turn into the mighty protector named Captain Marvel, for the purpose of protecting innocent people from the evil use of the Golden Scorpion by selfish men. After Captain Marvel rescues the archaeologists from the tomb the Golden Scorpion's energy beam sealed and becomes Billy Batson again by saying the name of Shazam, the expedition members, deeming the Golden Scorpion too powerful for any one man to have, agreed to the decision for Billy to have the scroll that makes the ancient device work, and divide the Golden Scorpion's 5 quartz lenses among the scholars. For when the lenses are aligned, the Golden Scorpion can project a death ray, and when arranged another way, it turns common material into gold. However, a menacing black-robed and masked figure called the Scorpion persuades Siamese chieftain Rahman Bar and his band of religious natives to attack the expedition encampment and nab the Golden Scorpion and the scroll. After this endeavor is achieved, a partly incapacitated Billy Batson manages to alert Dr. Malcolm and the rest of the expedition party, as well as send an SOS via radio to troopers from the Fort Multan to help against the attack of the native horde, who are being motivated to war by the recent eruption of the volcano Scorpio. As the situation becomes more desperate for the party, Billy turns into Captain Marvel and facilitates the expedition's escape from the Valley of the Tombs as he puts many of the attackers out of commission, while also rescuing his friends Betty Wallace, secretary of the Malcolm expedition, and Whitey Murphy, his broadcasting co-worker, from an attempt by the natives to kill them as they were crossing a bridge during their getaway. In the second chapter, as the Malcolm expedition team returns to America, with supposedly each of their lenses, they soon discover that the Scorpion is also on U.S. soil, and with a criminal gang under his command, sets out to find each of the scholars and fatally take away the lenses from them. As the serial progresses, Billy, as Captain Marvel, gets himself, Betty, and Whitey out of perilous situations while also thwarts several of the Scorpion's plans to destroy him. Billy deduces that the Scorpion is someone from the Malcolm expedition, seeing how the Scorpion seems to know what transpires during the archaeologists' meetings. Captain Marvel must not only try and stop the Scorpion from obtaining the quartz lenses from the scholars and unmask him, but also, after it is discovered that one of the lenses was left behind by one of the expeditioners in Siam, a race against time commences, for the Scorpion holds the map to where the lens is hidden. And once again, Billy must join the Malcolm expedition in a trip back to Siam, where his alter ego will be greatly needed, for the Scorpion has a legion of devoted natives, ready to follow his sinister command. Adventures of Captain Marvel was well received by audiences and critics of the time, and was a huge success at the box office. This led Republic Pictures to adapt another superhero from Fawcett Comics into a movie serial, and that was Spy Smasher, released the following year after Adventures of Captain Marvel and directed by William Witney, resulting in yet another great serial from Republic. And shortly after, Republic made a deal with Timely Comics, who would become Marvel in 2 more decades, and Captain America got his successful serial, even if the character in the motion picture was significantly different from the one in the comics. This success by Republic also caused Columbia Pictures to do their superhero serial adaptations in 1943 with Batman and the Phantom, with Captain Marvel himself, Tom Tyler, donning the costume of the Ghost Who Walks. Speaking of the Phantom, there is one movie from more modern times that I see as a spiritual retelling of the adventures of Captain Marvel, and that is 1996's The Phantom, a movie I covered on this channel, and in case you missed it, I'll put the link of that video in the description box of this review. Much the same way Captain Marvel is tasked in preventing the Scorpion from coming into possession of the Golden Scorpion's quartz lenses, so is the Phantom's mission to impede the power-mad businessman Sandor Drax from getting his hands on the ancient and powerful skulls of Uganda. Both the Golden Scorpion and the skulls of Uganda have the capacity to harness the energy of the sun. Also, both films take place in Asia and in America. Both the Scorpion and Sandor Drax have a ruthless right-hand man. The Scorpion has Barnett, and Drax has Quill. And finally, where Adventures of Captain Marvel has Rahman Bar and his legion of devoted natives as backdrop antagonists who reside in a volcanic area, the Phantom has the Sang Brotherhood, led by the infamous pirate Kavai Sang, as background villains who also dwell in a volcanic island. The serial was also very influential on the 1994 DC graphic novel The Power of Shazam, written and drawn by Jerry Ordway, as the story also opens with an expedition party in Egypt where archaeologist C.C. Batson and his wife Marilyn and their colleague Theo Adam are excavating the tomb of Ramses II and raid the tomb of the wizard Shazam. The book also features Captain Marvel confronting a group of thugs atop of the WHIC building, which echoes the scene in the serial where the world's mightiest mortal fights the Scorpion's men atop of the N Street Garage building in the 5th chapter called The Scorpion Strikes, as both also include Captain Marvel stopping thugs escaping in an elevator. Speaking of Shazam graphic novels, in case you missed it, I'm also going to put the link in the description box a review I did 4 years ago of the 2017 hardcover edition of the 30th anniversary of Shazam, A New Beginning. Do check it out. The Adventures of Captain Marvel is worthy of its solid reputation. In a lot of ways, it may have been the one that slowly started a trend with comic book superheroes making a leap from the printed page to celluloid. Republic Pictures took this silly comic book and turned it into a very gripping, serious, pulpy adventure, worthy of those of The Shadow and Doc Savage. Much the same way 8 decades later Alex Garland made a very compelling Judge Dredd movie with 2012's Dredd, by doing away with the more outrageous sci-fi elements of the comics and grounding it to a more Escape from New York, RoboCop gritty dystopian world. So if you're someone who's already gone back and gained an appreciation for 40s adventure films like The Mark of Zorro, or maybe also the 50s Adventures of Superman TV show, Adventures of Captain Marvel is a potentially mighty good time that awaits your viewing. The Adventures of Captain Marvel should be available to watch on YouTube, and if you're like me and has hard-on for physical media, well, you can hunt down the 2003 DVD set, and there's also the 2017 Blu-ray, which has a commentary track featuring several film historians, including Leonard Maltin. So that's our review. Hope you enjoyed it. If so, please give it a like, make sure you subscribe and hit that bell, and feel free to leave your comments below. Thank you so much for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.